Hello, everyone, and welcome to Out of This World. I am your host, Jamie Hanshaw, and my comrade, Kristin Lagan, is here, and we have a humdinger of a show. We're going to talk about so much today. The first thing we are going to go over as we sip our chocolate. I recommend everybody get that from chalk.com. We are hyper, we are focused, we're ready to share with you what we have today. So,
yeah. Well,
first hot topic, remember that? Hot Pockets?
Oh, Hot Pockets. Oh, yeah. That's high school days for me.
Hot topic. Last week, I opened my phone and just scrolling through, and I saw this tweet by Jordan Peterson, who I'm pretty neutral about him. I've heard, he's a friend to Christians, and he has a lot of Orthodox friends. I don't really haven't listened to a lot of his lectures or read any of his books or anything, but he's a pretty famous philosopher, professor.
He's a psychology professor.
I'm
kind of a fan. So yeah.
You're a fan? Okay.
I am. So, yeah.
I'm kind of worried about him right now. I want to be like, Jordan, are you okay? Because I open my phone and this is the tweet I see by Jordan Peterson. It says, "Sorry, not beautiful. And no amount of authoritarian tolerance is going to change that." And he is talking about the Sports Illustrated swimsuit model on the cover of 2022, and her name is Yumi Nu. And this is a picture of what he is talking about. Right?
Yep.
Not beautiful, according to Jordan Peterson.
Right.
So I read this tweet and I had like 10 different opinions at once and my head exploded. And I thought I have to share this with you guys, and because everybody has to weigh in. Right?
Yeah. So this glare in my glasses is going to drive me nuts. I'm going to take these off.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. He has I like his opinions. I know a lot of people that don't care for him. He's a very polarizing character in our culture today. But I'd like to hear what exploded your brain.
Okay. Okay, the first thing I thought of when he said authoritarian, what was it? Something. He's kind of right, but also kind of being an a-hole. And I hate that when I agree with somebody in their principle, but not in their delivery.
Okay.
What they're trying to say. So here I'm going to attempt to elucidate what I think JP is trying to hit upon, but he doesn't know, or he doesn't want to state plainly. And that is, we live under a satanic oligarchy.
Okay. Yes.
I know a lot of people are going to be like, what? But yeah, that's true. So satanic ideology calls for the inversion of creation, and the black mass with bodily fluids replaces the Eucharist of the liturgy. The pentagram is turned upside down. Good is bad, ugly is beautiful, etc.
Right.
And I did a show in 2014 about how this is the time of what they call the externalization of the hierarchy, or the revelation of the method, and which is they're going to slowly reveal to you who is actually what the world leaders believe, and you will believe this too, or you will be eradicated. And I used Tess Holliday as an example back then in 2014. Do you know who that is? She's like a model that was a lot bigger than the Sports Illustrated Yumi, but her whole persona was more about like fat fetish.
Okay.
And like she has a tattoo of Miss Piggy. She does photo shoots with junk food and eating corn dogs and things like that. So it's kind
Okay.
of a little more to the point of what I think Jordan Peterson is trying to say, but he doesn't like know the details of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So is Sports Illustrated part of this agenda, the Videodrome? We're going to talk about that. Yes, of course, absolutely, they are. Is there a conspiracy to get us to do things that are harmful to ourselves?
Yes.
Yes, you bet there is. Would this publication be trying to disseminate subversive ideas? The Sports Illustrated? Yes, I think they would. However, and this is where I come to my second opinion, which is a woman's opinion, right? So the first
Okay.
one was a conspiracy theorist opinion. And the woman's opinion was just like, this is an example of Jordan having nothing to offer but the audacity to just put that out there, right?
Yeah.
Because Yumi Nu is beautiful. She's beautiful. There's no,
Yeah, absolutely. She has a beautiful face.
she's objectively beautiful. There's no
Mhm.
arguing that. Just because she's not the size that you like doesn't mean she's not beautiful, right?
Right.
She has a pretty face. She has flowing hair. She has nice skin. All parts are where they should be. She's not a grotesque shapes trying to pass as a model of what we should look like,
Mm-hmm.
right? And just because she's not his type doesn't mean she's not beautiful. So I get like my jimmies get rustled.
Okay. How many Jimmys do you have?
I have certain jimmies for certain things. I don't
Yeah.
like people picking on women, for one. Just because she's not his type, he's not victimized because he doesn't find her attractive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
See, I don't think he's directly, I mean, he did directly insult her because he's implying that he doesn't think she's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And that is his opinion. I mean, Twitter's free speech platform, so he gets to say whatever he wants because we have a lot of people saying whatever they want everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I personally think he was attacking more of like the system or the breakdown of like I was watching Tim Pool did a podcast on this and I was listening to it. And he's like, hey, let men that find bigger women attractive, like let them have their day, like not a big deal. But the reality of it is that if we start, it's almost like Lizzo, like this fat phobia, or taking care of your body, or, because if you're overweight, it's really not good for your health. And so I think that is that's the way I took it. Like, no, you're not going to corrupt our minds into thinking this, because I really don't think it had a lot to do with her. I think it had more to do with the establishment.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to explain about what he meant about authoritarian tolerance.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because the satanic inversion is the modus operandi and the goal. But in this particular case, I don't think that he is using the right illustration to make his point. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I mean, I will say he is definitely part of a demographic, like young white guys like Jordan Peterson. I don't think any of my friends like Jordan Peterson, like females. I really like him. And I think it's because I can see the way that he plays his words around. It's almost as if like you don't get stuck on words, you get stuck on the concept, and then you can go deeper into the concept. And so I kind of I mean, we might have opposing views here, but I kind of like that he said it in a way. I kind of like that, not that he attacked, I don't think he attacked her. I do think that what Sports Illustrated is doing is it's giving permission for anybody to be exactly how they are all the time and never striving for the betterment of themselves. And so it's like, it takes a lot of work to figure out your diet and to go to the gym and to understand, like we did gut health the other day. Like it takes research and really understanding your body. And so I don't like that he used this against that woman, you know, like he used that particular, but he says this all the time with like trans and with pronouns. And so, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was just thinking like, you know, a woman who has multiple children could easily be this size.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
is he going to tell her you're not beautiful because you have too much chaos in your thighs?
So that's what they're not. So like, here's the thing, like somebody posted a picture of Jordan Peterson and said, it's this literally the same thing he said about the woman, and posted a picture of Jordan Peterson. And it's like, it doesn't really translate because that woman with the children and Jordan Peterson himself are not trying to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated, which is commonly and repeatedly understood to be this platform to kind of place the standard of beauty. I mean, I don't like the standard of beauty. I think it's unrealistic and I think it's absolutely bonkers, but it's kind of like saying, I'm trying to think of a good analogy here, but it's kind of like saying, I want to be the president of the United States, but I also don't want to go to college, or I don't want to go to school. Like, I don't know. Like, she knew she's going to be on Sports Illustrated. Sports Illustrated knew what they were putting on the magazine.
Yeah.
And so there, like you were saying, that it's the inversion, not to say like bigger women are not beautiful. And that used to be that used to be the cultural norm. I just think that it's the blatant degradation. The free speech is like kind of like trickling, like you can't say whatever you want to anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a bold move for him.
Super bold. Yeah. But he's used to doing that. He does that kind of stuff all the time.
I had a third opinion, and this was just kind of like my Christian opinion. Nobody needs to be posing naked for the public to judge and scrutinize their body.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So this is an absence of sovereignty, and enticing lust is not the way to a healthy society. If you're big or small, or if you're Kate Moss or Lizzo or anybody that's trying to foment lust from men, as the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition is for, that's just not, a vibe. So this leads to treating objects like women and women like objects. And it would not be any better to objectify her if she was thinner. Right?
Right. Yeah.
So JP is trying to take some kind of moral position, but he's missing the point entirely, I think. And he doesn't have all the details that, we do about the satanic movement, just because I've been studying this for 20 years already. Just like he's been studying psychology, I've been studying this. And this segues into what our main topic is going to be tonight, which is Grimes, which inspired this Grimes Met Gala look, right?
Yes.
The messy lip gloss and the black eyeliner and everything.
You on point.
Yeah. Grimes and communism. So we are going to be talking about how people take the opinions of other people and run with them, and it creates chaos and destruction. And we look up to people who we don't need to be looking up to, right? They're not saints, they're not Jesus. And their writings and their teachings and their sayings are not something that we need to be internalizing and making revolutions about.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is going to be a two-part show. And tonight we're going to talk about Grimes and communism. And next week we're going to talk about Elon Musk and transhumanism and how they go together. So let's just get the set the stage and the cast of characters. We have the dramatis personae, if you will, of the Armageddon that we are going through right now. Is Grimes, aka Claire Boucher, an indie techno singer from Toronto who sings like a baby and wears stickers on her face.
Yep. I didn't know a whole lot about Grimes other than with Elon until until this past week. And then I know a lot now, probably more than I want to know.
Yeah. So, and then we have Elon Musk, the richest man in the world who also wants to put microchips in everyone's brain and send millions of people to Mars. Also, created
not going
PayPal and Tesla.
Yeah.
We have Karl Marx, father of communism, satanic poet, a dirty louse, moocher, abysmal family man, and hater of God. And then we have Amber Heard, Aquaman's girlfriend and Johnny Depp's ex-wife, America's new villain, with a social credit score of -40. Right? Have you been following the Johnny Depp Amber thing?
A little bit. Probably, I mean, I know people make it their job right now to follow this. Of course, my brain is like, what are they distracting us from? Like, obviously. I think it's funny. I watched one interview, or not, is that what it's like? The doorman was brought to the stand and they questioned him and it was freaking hilarious. But yeah, other than just like short clips, I'm not following it. Like I probably, honestly, I'm okay not following it.
Yeah, it's a crazy ride. I feel sorry for her and we'll talk about her next week.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that she's innocent, but I do feel compassion towards her situation that she's got herself into by lying.
Yeah, exactly. Like I have a hard time having compassion for her, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, people, especially women, I think pull this quite a bit is like, well, and I have empathy for women because we are weaker in general and we have more estrogen, which makes us more emotional. I mean, biologically, this is how we're made, but it gets our emotions get us into trouble. And so, yes. I feel for her on that level, but then there's, when you're lying, and like, if you lie, then you're going to get caught and it's not going to be good. So, yeah.
Yeah, when we do our show about dating, I'm going to use her as an illustration of how not to end up on the stand and being called Amber Turd for the rest of your life.
Yeah, not good. Yeah.
But for now, we are talking about Claire Boucher, Grimes, and her most dangerous worldview. So she also goes by C and War Nymph. Those are
I saw War Nymph. What the
personalities. So she says she's a techno pagan. Her style is called Witch House Techno. She has 2 children, one surrogate with Elon Musk, and everyone I'm sure has heard the name, the weird, XAEAXII, the boy. And then the girl is called Exa Dark Side Rail. In 2021, she made a TikTok saying that AI is the fastest path to communism.
Yeah.
And we could have automated farming and lab-grown ethical meat because enforced farming is not a vibe.
Not a vibe check. Okay, no. Got it.
So she is marrying technocracy, transhumanism, those types of ideologies with communism, which I just think is the most dangerous thing that you could
Absolutely. Yeah.
even push on people. And so then in 2021, she did a photo shoot in LA wearing like this post-apocalyptic Mad Max sci-fi outfit.
Mm-hmm.
And she's reading the Communist Manifesto with a big picture of Karl Marx on the cover. And this is obviously a staged photo for publicity.
Right.
She claims that it was, yeah.
She just reminds me of an angsty teenager, you know, like.
Here's the thing. I like these girls. I like Grimes. She reminds me of the girls that I would know in Austin when I lived there. You know, quirky,
Little tomboyish.
artsy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
absolutely.
so I really have a heart. And so when I talk about people like Britney Spears, Beyonce, Lady Gaga, etc., I'm not trying to expose them or say that they're evil or bring them down. I just want to be like, sis, you are in danger.
Yeah.
You know, I like you. I like your art, but this is not good.
Mm-hmm.
And you're teaching people things that are wicked. So she says that that picture was a stunt to troll paparazzi as a performative attempt at an anti-capitalist statement. And I don't know if you've noticed, but capitalism is super out of fashion right now. Everyone hates it.
It's a bad word.
Everyone hates their job. They hate the way they've been treated, which I agree with. I'm not going to invalidate your grievance. Jobs super suck. Bosses are terrible. The whole system is bad, but communism is not the answer. I promise you. And I'm going to prove it to you tonight.
Yeah. I mean, communism is just going to delete the middle class completely.
Yes. There's Gigi. She woke up. Hi, Gigi.
Oh, this is a baby.
Cute.
Gigi.
So
she's coming.
I just think it's funny that the richest man in the world's baby mama is pushing communism.
Yeah.
Is that ironic or not?
Yeah. Very ironic.
And why is it always the rich that try to make communism popular? It seems like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's funny because I feel like Musk has captured more of a right audience in the past year. And the right-winged audience is more capitalism, open to capitalism. And so I almost feel like it was like a chess move on his part of being like, I'm going to go in and capture this audience, build their trust, give them things like Twitter, and then I'm going to sell them on communism.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I think Elon is sort of a Trojan horse, and
Mm-hmm.
we're going to deep dive into him next week.
Yeah.
But let's get to War Nymph. So this is a project that explores the fluidity of identity in the virtual age, the ability to create, augment, and splinter ourselves into unlimited avatars and boundless worlds. This sounds like Monarch stuff. Multiple personalities,
absolutely.
splitting your identity.
Yeah.
Right? And then I have a picture of War Nymph. So this is like a persona that she made as a baby. Can you see that?
Uh-huh. Ew.
So this
so
is her
creepy.
Demonic, angelic avatar.
She's just like, I know she, I went on a deep dive with her just with trying to understand who she was. And I know she was picked on in school and she created this persona around herself of being an outcast and weird and strange. And so maybe it's not weird or strange that she does stuff like this to her, but it's almost as if she's used to the attention. So that's not new for her. And it is creepy and it is weird. So
this one. So that's a classic, half machine, half person. She's also crying. Her skull is also fragmented. I mean, it's got Christina Aguilera has a photo shoot very similar to this.
Mm.
And it's just classic monarch
Yeah.
symbolism all the way
Right.
through. And so this alter ego is to separate her persona from her humanity, she says. And
Mm.
so she's trying to untether her two lives, her digital life and her
Yep.
real life. And then she talks about techno-feminism and how she would like to be more in her avatar persona because pregnancy has changed her body. And I think that's
Oh,
really sad that she feels like she needs to hide now because pregnancy has done something to her.
that's sad. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can see that being a message a lot of people want to like run from their physical
Mhm.
to become this. It's like Ready Player One,
Mhm.
it's you can be whatever you want to be,
Yeah, exactly. So she did this interview with The Face in 2020, and she claims that being famous is like being in an abusive relationship.
Hmm.
And I can see that because you're always on display, you're always being scrutinized, you're always being judged. Everything you do is open to everyone's criticism, just like
Mm-hmm.
Yumi on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Yeah.
So she needed War Nymph as a survival mechanism for her mental health.
Is this before she had the baby or after?
After, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is like NFT type stuff, meta, the virtual world. So this is
Mm-hmm.
her in that life. So
Got
she
it.
can have two different lives.
Yeah.
But who is her true self? Because she's always talking about she has a fluid personality.
Mm.
Um, and then she had a 2020 concept album called Miss Anthropocene.
Yeah.
And this is about the goddess of climate change, she says, a psychedelic space dwelling demon slash beauty queen who relishes the end of the world.
Mm. Yeah. She's definitely not a happy camper. Like, doesn't really like living here.
No, I think she's probably been through that program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like her worldview is completely, like we said before, inverted.
Yeah. So her baby avatar War Nymph is the foil of Miss Anthropocene. Um, and then she has a song. Oh, she said avatars are a new species. So she's all about like creating new species through technology.
Mm. Yeah. I
Have you
mean,
seen?
she talks a lot about playing God, being God.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen her artwork?
Yeah, you sent me a little link and I looked at it today.
I mean, you can
Real weird.
you can tell a lot about a person from their art.
Yeah, I mean, that's coming out of there. I mean, I did read she goes in a sensory deprivation tank for hours a day. And it's like, okay, why do you need to do that for hours a day?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, she's getting bad. She's acting up.
Gigi's gonna be a star.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, I think she is going to capture a lot of young people's minds and intrigue, and sell them on this idea of like, you can be whatever you want. I mean, we're already doing that with names and language and concepts. And now, I mean, she's just selling it and pitching it, and people are going to pick it right up.
Yeah. And she has this air of like authenticity because she's indie,
Mm-hmm.
that she's not like a studio packaged person. And I like her talent. Like I like her music. It reminds me of when Jay and I first met, we would play her first album a lot, like driving,
Mm-hmm.
and singing along to Grimes before anyone knew who that was.
Yeah. I do know she has a lot of religious trauma.
Mm,
And so, she's young. Maybe she'll come to grips with that at some point if she's able to, but she has the whole like Catholic guilt type thing.
mm,
Where she became agnostic at a young age and then becoming agnostic and then also being a loner. Like, man, what an identity. And she just went to town with that identity.
mhm. So she has this song called We Appreciate Power, which is kind of like, it comes across as a hymn to a computer god where the lyrics are about humanity living in VR and worshiping AI. And it says, submit, submit, submit.
Yeah.
Um, and
Mm-hmm.
uploading the mind to achieve immortality.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, okay. So we listened to an interview, and the thing that struck me the most about her is that she openly and passionately admits that she's scared of death.
yes, like most transhumanists are
Yeah.
terrified of what happens when you die because they have no faith.
They have
Um,
no faith. They want to control everything. And it just like, even if you're not a Christian, that goes against like all the other like sacred wisdoms of our past, like death is just a crossing. I mean, Rumi has tons of poetry about death and crossing over from dimensions to other dimensions. And I mean, uh, it's driving me kind of crazy because like the whole Silicon Valley that's so scared of death was such like Ram Dass heads, like they like loved Ram Dass and, had the Be Here Now books, and they would talk about their enlightenment, but he was constantly talking about death.
hmm.
So it's kind of, it's definitely an infiltration of eternal life,
Yeah. If you listen to Ray Kurzweil talk, he's one of the
Oh,
prominent
yeah.
humanists. He's terrified of death. He takes like bags of supplements every day.
Oh, wow.
And he's all about like life extension and all this stuff just because he's so scared to die.
That's got to be an awful feeling.
Oh yeah, I know.
Because like one of my favorite verses is, "Oh, death, where art thou sting?" It's like there's this freedom when you get to a place of like, this is beautiful. I'm happy to be here,
Mm-hmm.
but my conscience is clear and
Mm-hmm.
I have a relationship with something outside of me,
One of the songs the Orthodox sing is Christ has trampled down death by death.
Mm-hmm.
So we have nothing to fear because he's already conquered death.
Yeah. There is no death,
And
it's just a pass, it's a transition.
the way they teach it is like we have to die so that we can be resurrected perfect. And we can't continue in these bodies because they're decrepit, like, sinful, and they have
Fallen. Mm-hmm.
diseases. And so it's kind of like you're a house that has to be evacuated and cleaned up and swept up and updated and painted all the walls, and then you can go back in once um, you're resurrected and everything's going to be better, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a really good Orthodox series about life after death that I'll link to this show. And everybody, it's very comforting thing to listen to. So not only is she scared of death, she is into body mod, which extreme body mod is satanic, right? Like you don't want to cut your tongue into a lizard tongue and put giant holes in your ears and tattoo your whole body, and all of that is
It's just a phase, man. It's just a phase.
it's besmirching the image of God by extremely modifying your body. We don't want to do that. So she claims to have eliminated blue light from her vision through experimental surgery that replaced the top film of her eyeball with an orange polymer as a means to cure seasonal depression. We talked about that, the blue light and all that in our Let There Be
Yeah.
Light show. So according to reports, I don't know if this is true or not, she has modified her eyes.
I saw that because I was like, ooh, what? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I have extreme seasonal depression. And I was like, oh, that sounds really awesome if you can just get rid of it. But I would not want to, like getting rid of blue light. How do you naturally produce cortisol in the morning?
Right.
It's like, it's the blue light that, I mean, we have these signaling mechanisms inside of us. And that just feels, so if she's only seeing like the red light, that's what you see at night. I don't know. It just feels very complicated.
That's pretty extreme.
Yeah.
And so then she had this other weird thing where there was a promo for her song called Violence 2 months before the big C, you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And it included hieroglyphs of DNA, a C, 3 stabs, a UFO, and DNA splicing. And this is what it looked like. You can find that on Instagram. So it has all these weird prophetic,
Wow,
riddle type hieroglyphs on here. So it's like, is she privy to information by being with the richest man in the world? I'll go with yes. No, come on.
There's no way she knows anything.
Well, what's funny
Yeah.
is I heard she had to do a Kickstarter for one of her videos. Like, why would you have to crowdfund when your boyfriend has all the money in the world?
Mm-hmm.
Not just your boyfriend, your baby's dad can't
Yeah.
kick you some money to make a video. That's just weird. And then, so according to Isaac Weishaupt, I listened to a show about her from him. In an interview, she talks about different altars and a demon named IV. And this was in an interview for Flesh Without Blood. And IV is so weird because Beyonce has IV tattooed on her.
Well, isn't that what she named her baby?
Blue Ivy.
Beyond
Yeah.
Blue Ivy, yeah.
Yeah. So there's something going on in these circles. Some people think maybe Ivy could be like creeping bloodlines of Satanists.
Okay.
I'm not sure because it also is the number 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have not cracked that one yet. So maybe somebody in the comments can.
Still working at it. Yeah.
Let's see. Grimes says she went through a Wiccan phase in junior high.
And who hasn't in junior high though?
I know that's such a junior high thing to do. Like,
yeah,
edgy. I'm a witch. I'm a Satanist.
Yeah.
But she says a rosary fell apart in her hand and it really freaked her out. So
yeah, yeah.
Then, so getting to this interview with Lex Friedman, she talks about something called protopia.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like utopia. And that the children who grew up with tech are fundamentally different species. And she calls them homo techno.
Yep. That's the first time I've ever heard that. But I mean, we did talk about this. Realistically, are younger people different than we are? Just
so.
Yeah, I mean, they do see the world differently. They operate differently. They connect with other humans differently. Their goals and motivations and purpose, all different. Like, I feel so old saying this, but I just found out about a new social platform called Be Here, or have you heard of this one? And it's like Instagram and Snapchat together, and it's like a visual, like a video of like where you are, and then you upload that. It's definitely just like, and it's popular, like all the young college kids have it on their phone. Yeah.
She says that cell phones are the first step to cyborg. because we
Okay.
always have them with us,
Yeah.
and there will be a shift of what a human is. And that's so funny because last night I had a dream that someone stole my car and my cell phone, and I was like bereft because I didn't know what to do with myself.
Hmm.
In my dream, with no phone and no
Wow.
car, I'm like, how am I going to live? How am I going to what it's like if I had no food and water, it was that intense of a feeling like if I had no car and cell phone,
Wow.
I'm dead in
Yeah.
the water. So then she talks about motherhood that should be compensated because it's the most important job. And this is a really smart thing she said.
I liked this perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, she's real well spoken. She's really educated in a way,
Well read. Yeah.
yeah, that she reads a lot and she thinks about things. You know, she's not just a chowderhead bumbling through life, right?
Hmm.
She has like very educated opinions on things, but her worldview is really, really dangerous when it comes to communism. And this is, I hate that people get sucked up in this thing. And that's why we're going to go deep, deep into who Karl Marx was and what communism was in a minute, because it's really dangerous and it could lead to millions of people dying. Like, I think this one book I read was like 100 million people have died under communism, more than any other
Mm. Wow.
force in the whole world. So, yeah, she's terrified of death. She says life imitates art.
Hmm.
So,
And that there was an article we read. It's basically like art is just two steps behind or two steps ahead of what's to be rolled out in the physical.
look at this one. So she's like licking an evil hand.
Ew. Yeah. This
Uh,
is the type of stuff that gets in here and then I don't sleep well. And yeah.
Did you pull up any of her art, or should I do that right now?
I mean, I just pulled up what you sent me.
Uh-huh. So it's very featured, centered around skulls.
Like that one was one that I kind of like just had a lot of fun with.
Yeah. Okay, so something's going on in her head. This is
Yeah.
like Monarchs 101 stuff.
And her nose is bleeding. There's UFOs.
Skulls, evil skulls,
Hmm.
lots of those. Um, what's this guy? Some alien guy with a third eye.
Yeah.
So her art is very telling. I'm just kind of like scrolling through, like, what is this thing? Anybody who is
Hmm.
using skulls a lot has this preoccupation with death. Like, we don't want to be messing around with skulls and things that are of death, because that's anathema to what we are as Christians, right? Anyway, everybody go look at her art. I mean, it's creative and it's good, but it tells you where her head is at.
Hmm.
Um, she thinks AI is the way, and she
Hmm.
thinks AI is coming to save us somehow. They could see us as pets, she said. Do you remember that?
Hmm.
So they could be so far advanced that they just keep humans around as some kind of remnant of the past as a pet.
Yeah. It kind of reminded me of the whole like Fermi paradox idea of like, oh, we could just be little ants down here and then they're out there and they're just watching us, maybe, maybe not. But they'll keep us around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like, okay, now we have AI.
Right. She says that it could render us obsolete. Uh, AI movies is the final solution. Oh, okay. This is what it made me think of. So whenever you watch a movie where they have this AI and they give it this directive like save all humans or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
A computer is going to interpret that in a different way, and they always go off into this thing like, well, to save all humans I have to kill all humans, or it's always like the final solution is eradicating humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen movies like that? I'm thinking of like Eagle Eye. What else?
Well, it's
I'm sure.
like instead of like a compassionate or heartfelt idea, it's like, what's the most logical?
Yes, because
And so it's just reason. That's it.
mhm, it's cold,
Mm-hmm.
sterile, and all logic. So she's terrified of death. She's obsessed with anti-aging and biohacking, she said. Remember that?
Yeah.
She
I
takes a
mean, I
lot
think a lot of biohacker dudes that I follow are scared of aging, you know?
of. When asked if she could be someone else for a day, she said Hitler
Mm-hmm.
or Stalin
Yep.
because she wants to understand evil.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
Yeah. And she was spinning it like, if I understood their perspective, like why they did the things that they did, then I would understand like how not to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But still.
Yeah. So she says we are the algae of future AI.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just in evolution, we're just another step to perfection. And we're going to talk about the theology of that next week through the mystery schools, because that's what Masonic lore and everything is about, the perfect ashlar, taking man as a rough ashlar and making him a perfect thing through masonry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be a technocracy and improving men through cyborgs and things like that.
Yeah.
Right. And then the last thing was she is worried about the supply chain, which I think you should be. Everyone should be worried about this situation
Yeah.
that we are going into.
It's like, I did like when she talked about how she admitted, before I had children, I had a very cynical worldview.
Mm-hmm.
I was more critical and cynical, but now, she keeps referring to her kid as like, she can see consciousness, she's obsessed with consciousness. And so I'm happy that she has found some like joy in life and through a child. That's beautiful. But at the same time, it's questionable to see this child and then think, oh, it would be better served if ultimately if we were to upload everything into a cloud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Children really reorient people's perspectives in a good way, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So at least there's some hope for her by being a mother,
Mm-hmm.
I think. Is that all you wanted to say about Grimes as a person?
Yeah, I mean, she's a very interesting life. She's done a lot in her young years. And um, like you said, like she seems like a cool girl. Like she'd be the type of girl that I would look at and just be like, wow, I mean, you're like very cool.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that curiosity is so beautiful. You have to be careful. Like I almost feel like curiosity is a double-edged sword because it can take you, and I've done this, it takes you down paths when before you know it, you've been swept by this wave and you're in this really dark space and you're learning about things and you think it's good, but it's really not. And all it does is confuse you and makes you see the world through a not so good lens.
Curiosity without a worldview is dangerous because you could just be tossed around.
Oh yeah.
Whether every way you read, like today I'm a Buddhist, today I'm a Hindu, today Zen, or like just whatever you're curious about, it can lead you down paths that go nowhere.
Yeah. And like, I think that's how we grow, evolve, expand ourselves but as my spiritual father would always tell me, like, Kristin, go this way, like, just go this way. And it's like, oh, but what's over there? So yeah, I still have that inside of me a little bit. Not going to lie. I wrestle with it quite a bit. So,
well, have you ever been curious about communism?
I mean, I bought the book a couple of years ago, just Karl Marx's, just standard communism. What's it?
Communist Manifesto.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. That's the one. That one. I've never read it though. I just wanted to own it. Just if I needed to jump over to it and see it. So,
well, you're going to be hearing a lot about this, and that's why I want to get in front of it and let you all know that this is disgusting and dangerous. Capitalism out, communism is in. People on TikTok and on social media are just like super anti-capitalist, and they are merging capitalism with Christianity.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily a thing. Christians have lived under all sorts of different kinds of regimes, and we can exist in democracies, we can exist in monarchies, we can exist as long as we're allowed to exist. It doesn't necessarily have to be a marriage with Christianity and capitalism, right?
Right.
Communism is satanic, and there's no other way to put it, because I read all of this stuff. Let's start with this one. Oh, and if you go to an Orthodox church, you're going to meet some Russians that have immigrated and fled from communism to come here. And they will tell you that, it's the worst thing that ever happened to their country.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're scared that it's happening here, and nobody understands how bad it can get, but they know because they're
not that far removed from it.
Exactly. They lived through it, and now they're here saying, don't do this.
Like their grandparents literally lived through this.
Yeah. Not just their grandparents. Like I have friends at my old church that, the wall just came down in like the 80s or something.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, they're like, I brought my family here so they could have a better life. And now look, it's following me. It's a curse. And then do you remember at the beginning of the coup, they had all the celebrities singing Imagine?
Yeah.
John Lennon. So that's a communist song. No possessions, no religion, no whatever. And communism is first and foremost about the abolition of religion. And this is a book. It's a pretty short book. It's a good read. The author spent 14 years in prison behind the Iron Curtain for his opposition to atheist communism.
Wow.
He was a Romanian pastor and brutally tortured with what he describes as literal demonic zeal.
Oh.
And he wrote another book about it called Tortured for Christ, and is the story of his captivity. But this is just about communism. And so he starts off talking about Karl Marx, and Karl Marx was a Christian. He grew up Christian. He was a nice Christian boy. He had a great Christian family. And this is something that you're going to see with a lot of these people. They have a sort of satanic conversion, just like Paul had on the road to wherever he was going, where he saw Damascus. Jesus and he converted. These people are having the opposite of that.
Yeah.
So he started out, he was writing nice poems and hymns, and something happened. And neither of these books actually had like a detailed event. It was him going to college and trying to make his way in the world. And there was just a chasm that opened, and he had a villain origin story. That is still a mystery to me. Maybe somebody in the chat knows exactly what happened to poor old Karl Marx. Maybe his dog died. I don't know. But he had like an Anakin Skywalker moment where he chooses the dark side. Literally.
Mm.
And many of his contemporaries, Engels, Lenin, Stalin, Crowley, also had a Christian upbringing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
I
it's
mean, Grimes had a Christian upbringing.
yeah.
There's unfortunately, I just have to throw it out there. Religion has done not a good job at converting or helping people on the path to righteousness or
Yeah.
um so yeah, I mean, I kind of have a heart for people that go through religious trauma.
Mm-hmm. Religious abuse is a real thing. Um,
Absolutely.
that's why we have to have one Holy Catholic Apostolic Church that we know is not going to be doing all kinds of crazy cult things
Mm.
and teaching you wrong doctrines. That's why the church is so important, I think. So we don't splinter off into a whole bunch of different cults that are abusing people. So who hurt you, Karl Marx? We don't know yet. At around 18 years old, his poems become super dark and emo. And he says a curtain had fallen and new gods had to be installed. So he had a total like disillusion with his Christian upbringing and every type of morality. He wrote a poem, or no, a play called Ulanem, Oulanem is the word and the title of the play. And it's a blasphemous word because it's like some kind of anagram of Emmanuel, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so he talks about wanting to drag people to hell with him, and all the characters are corrupt. His nickname was Destroy because he thought of humans as trash.
Okay.
His favorite character was the demon Mephistopheles from the play Dr. Faustus, who said everything in existence is worth being destroyed. And he would quote him all the time, this little guy. So this is a picture by Manly P. Hall,
Oh,
the
yeah.
invocation of Mephistopheles. And this
Uh-huh.
is a character from the Goethe play Faust, Dr. Faustus, you know, the Faustian bargain with the devil.
Yeah.
So this little ghoulie was Karl Marx's favorite character of
His
literature.
idol.
Yeah.
Okay. Can totally see it.
Yeah. So what else? He said, Karl Marx said his teachings are deliberately vague to confuse the reader and make him think whatever he chooses to think.
Hmm.
So he's got that con man going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Marx, Goebbels, and Hitler were all failed artists like
Mm-hmm.
Marx, who became nihilistic and fascinated by the occult. What's Gigi doing?
Knocking things over next to me.
I see her little tail.
Yeah.
That's so cute. His children's favorite story was one that he made up about a witch selling his prized possessions to the devil. So this is he's giving you like a character
Mm-hmm.
outline of who this guy is. And it's not
Yeah.
because he just cares about poor people and he wants everyone to be fair and have what they need. That is not what he was about at all. His first goal was to destroy religion before he even embraced socialism.
All right.
Yeah.
Man
So
on a mission.
he was. And communists preach absolutely no morals. So he and his friends were atheists. They hated God, but here's where it gets kind of confusing because he said that they believed in God, but they hated him.
Okay.
So they challenged God's supremacy, not his existence. Right?
So they basically were like, we believe in God, but we don't believe that God is. Sounds like a Gnostic view, maybe.
Kinda, yeah, like
Yeah.
he's there, but he's not our father and he's not good and he's not anything that we are about.
Yeah.
So he had this poem called Human Pride, where he dreams of wandering godlike and victorious through the ruins of the world to feel equal to the creator. So he has this like destructive personality that he just wants to see everything annihilated.
He's Shiva, the destroyer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
He wrote 100 volumes, but only 13 have been published by Soviets because I guess they don't want everyone to know exactly what was going on in this guy's house.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Two of his daughters and one son-in-law died in an unaliving pact.
Okay.
Is that crazy?
And yeah, does it say their age?
They were adults.
Okay.
And then he had children that died of malnutrition because he was such a poor provider.
Wow, stellar guy.
Yeah. He was a crumb bum. He mooched off Ingalls. He was super racist and used the N-word all the time.
Huh.
His son-in-law gave lectures on the wickedness of God and also wrote satanic themed poetry.
Wow. I had no idea what a dirtbag this guy was.
He is an extreme dirtbag.
Yeah.
By anybody's like yardstick of measurement of looking at their life. And this is what I hate when people just pose with pictures of like a Communist Manifesto with Karl Marx. Like, I'm so deep, I'm looking at communism. Like this guy, they always put them on the covers with like long beards, like there's some kind of wise man.
Yeah.
Who's lived a life of virtue and is trying to, disseminate some wisdom on people.
Right.
It's not like that.
Yeah.
He was writing all this stuff when he was a young guy, trolloping around, doing all sorts of crazy stuff that we're going to get into in detail. But just nobody that you need to be listening to what they have to say about anything. Right?
Right. Yeah.
But
it's almost like what's been happening the last year. It's like, I'm going to support the next thing. I'm going to support the next thing. And now I'm going to support the next thing. And this will just be a thing. And people don't understand what they're supporting. They don't understand why they're supporting it. But they definitely don't want to be in the out crew. They don't want to question things because that makes you scary to the population.
Well, that makes you like a friend of the establishment, which is oppressing everyone, which
exactly
yes, they are doing a controlled demolition of America right now. The rent, the mortgage, the jobs, everything.
Yeah. Everything,
the food, inflation,
baby formula, and they're blaming it on like immigrant children. It's like, what?
Yeah, baby formula. So this is all, what's it called? Problem, reaction, solution. And they're going to offer you Karl Marx as a solution.
Yep.
To our crumbling capitalist ways, which isn't even capitalist. It's like corporate fascism.
Yeah. It's
right?
Like there's still going to be corporations making money. This is all about making money. Oh, yeah. It's really frustrating, to try to reason with someone or like to try to get someone to see this perspective because they have it in their brain that if I don't go along with this, then I don't care about humanity. Right. It's like these two are not, they don't have to fit together.
So you want people to be poor? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So
if you don't like communism, you just want the rich to have everything and us to like be under their boot. No, that's not what I'm saying. And then look at like communist heroes are the biggest genocide people that ever lived. Mao.
Oh yeah.
Ceausescu, Stalin, Kim Il-sung, like all of these guys, wherever communism goes, people just die.
Lots of people die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they have an inner doctrine, just like other secret societies. To the public, they're atheists, but to the initiated, it's more than that.
Oh, yeah.
It's like an attack on God, like a satanic attack. So, under the Soviet Union, Orthodox cathedrals were used for Black Mass. This is according to Richard Wurmbrand. Orthodox cathedrals were used for Black Mass, a parody of the liturgy where human blood is used for communion.
Oh.
Marx wrote that torture is productive. So that's what they were doing, this poor Richard. The Communist Party spends large sums of money learning the dark arts and have 20 parapsychological institutes located in the Soviet Union. So parapsychology is stuff like hypnotism, ESP, telekinesis, psychic stuff. So that doesn't seem super logical and cold and calculated. I mean, that seems like woo-woo stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, he says Satan used Marx as a tool to lower man's self-esteem. According to Marx, man is a useless eater. This is what he thinks of people.
Okay.
What he
Useless
thinks
eaters.
of the
Yeah.
masses, the proletariat that he's supposedly like saving.
Yeah.
They are just a belly to be filled. The state of his belly is the reason for everything. Relationships are purely to satisfy needs, which he called the infrastructure. Marriage, love, art, science, religion, philosophy, anything other than the belly needs are what he called the superstructure.
Okay.
So you're just like a piece of algae, just munching, and and all man's problems are economic, according to him.
Yeah.
So you have like the Darwinian attitude where man is an animal, and then you have the Freud attitude where man is just sexual urges. And Marx taught that we're just hungry bellies. So in all of these ideologies, man is reduced.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So then during the time of the revolution in Russia, it was unpopular to be thought of as wholesome.
Okay. So yeah, it's like any virtues or ethics.
Our link to Christianity, which is like the patriarchy and oppressing everyone. And this is why we all don't have everything we want, because of patriarchy.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. Stalin was a student in an Orthodox seminary until he read Darwin.
Oh,
So
Darwin, I did not know that.
So he had a satanic conversion.
Oh, that's awful. That's so sad.
Yeah. So he's saying socialism is inseparable from internationalism because it's not enough just to have your country be communist and running like a well-oiled machine. According to you, you have to have the whole world leveled, playing field leveled, because other countries can't be richer. We all have to be equal, and under their system, it's going to be we're all equally poor. You will own nothing.
Right.
Right.
You'll not need anything. You'll own nothing. I mean, what it's reducing us down, and that's what makes me so sad about it, is the purpose or the motivations for us to reach altruistic ways of living. You know, like none of that will be pursued or desired at all.
Mm-hmm. So Marx had a collaborator called Nechayev who inspired Dostoevsky to write the book The Demons. And he wrote about dividing men into two unequal parts, where 1/10 has unlimited rights over 9/10 who must lose their personality and become a herd who are all equal in slavery.
Okay.
This is his buddy.
Yeah.
Marx's buddy wants 1/10 over 9/10. And this is in alignment with Aleister Crowley's ideology when he talks about the slaves shall serve. He taught this too. So according to them, morality is a concept that must be abolished. And the main goal of communism is to overthrow God. And then this was really interesting. At the end of this book, he talks about, so in Revelations 2:13, Jesus talks about a city in Turkey called Pergamos or Pergamon, where Satan's seat is. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Yeah. So that city back then was famous for a giant throne, which was an altar of Zeus built in the 2nd century BC. It was the largest structure in the world at the time and one of the 7 wonders. Right?
Really?
Yeah. So daily blood sacrifices were made there. And in the 1870s, German archaeologists uncovered it and took it to Berlin and built a museum around it called the Pergamon, which I've been to. I actually walked the steps of this thing, right?
Wow. But that was interesting.
Also there in that same museum is this postcard I got from that, which is the actual gates of Babylon called the Ishtar Gate or the Lion's Gate. See that?
Oh, yeah, that's wow.
So Pergamos is where the seat of Satan was, according to Jesus in Revelation. They uncover this thing, this throne of Zeus. They take it to Berlin and build a museum around it, put this in there too, Gates of Babylon. One of Crowley's Scarlet Women, his girlfriend Leah Herzing, did supposedly, I couldn't find a confirmation of this, but supposedly she did a spell there, which would make sense. But this was the center of the NAZI capital during HITLER. Seat of
Okay.
Satan. Okay.
Interesting.
At the end of World War II, the Soviets took this thing to Russia. I mean, it's huge. It's like
gates to a city.
Some museum built around it, you know?
Yeah.
This is the Ishtar Gate, not the seat of Saturn. This is a different thing in the same museum.
Okay.
But they took it to Russia, and the artist who designed Lenin's tomb used it for inspiration. So,
and this is the throne.
Yeah, Lenin's
okay. And what is the throne called again?
The Throne of Zeus.
Okay. I really need to
Altar
look up
Zeus,
pictures later.
Pergamos or Pergamon. You can say it either way. And the museum in Berlin is called Pergamon.
Okay.
So they built Lenin's tomb like based on this thing from Revelations.
Oh, that's good.
Isn't that sweet?
Yeah.
And that's what everybody in Red Square goes to visit instead of St. Basil's, which is probably one of the most beautiful Orthodox cathedrals in the world.
Wow.
That's not even an operating church, I don't think, anymore. But to see stupid Lenin's body, people are lined up around the block to give this guy flowers. It's crazy. But then it was returned to Berlin in 1958. And all the while it was in Russia, the public was not allowed access to it. So nobody knows what they were doing with this thing. Russia. I just thought that was super weird at the end of this book. And
very odd.
Last but not least for tonight, we have one more book, The Devil and Karl Marx. And this book actually, I think I heard about it. It was featured on Glenn Beck not too long ago, because this was written in 2020 or 2021. So very recently, another book about Karl Marx.
Did you like that book?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I
feel like we need to get these like hard copies before we can't.
Oh, yeah. So do you want to hear the Communist 10-point plan real quick? Just so we know what we're dealing with.
Let's hear it.
Okay. Number 1, abolition of property in land and application of all rents of land to public purposes. So you can't own anything. 2, a heavy progressive and graduated income tax. 3, abolition of all right of inheritance. 4, confiscation of all property of immigrants and rebels. 5, centralization of credit in the hands of the state by means of a national bank with state capital and an exclusive monopoly. 6, centralization of the means of communication and transport in the hands of the state. 7, extension of factories and instruments of production owned by the state, the bringing into cultivation of wastelands and the improvement of the soil, generally in accordance with a common plan. 8, equal obligation of all to work. So this is what Grimes was saying when she said farming was not a vibe, or enforced farming is not a vibe, she said, because communists call for this everybody does every job mentality.
Yeah.
9, gradual abolition of all the distinction between town and country by a more equitable distribution of the population over the country. So he didn't just want to spread out wealth. He wanted to spread out, like literally spread out people and tell them where they can and can't live. 10, free education for all children in public schools. Oh, that sounds nice.
So we can brainwash them.
Right.
Like we already are doing.
So this book starts out, he calls communism a blood banquet. Like, it's that bad. 100 million people, he says, have died under this regime.
Wow.
He is positing that actually communism is a form of insanity,
Mm.
right? Let's see. The original title for the Communist Manifesto was Communist Confession of Faith, because they viewed it as a type of revolutionary catechism,
Wow.
as opposed to biblical catechism.
Mm-hmm.
So this is your new faith. He said the key to paradise was solving the economic problem. The proletariat is being groomed in America today for revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You
Yeah.
can see it. You can see it
Yeah.
on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram,
Absolutely.
all of
Yeah.
it. So you can't separate the ideology from the person. And that's why I like biographies so much, because I don't even have to know what you're saying. I just want to know about you first, because I don't need to hear your drivel if you're a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
Are you like that?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And he's saying men start revolutions for reasons connected with their private lives. Aristotle said that, actually, and I think that's pretty true. Like, Hitler couldn't make it as a painter, so he's like, oh, I'll kill everybody.
Yeah. And I
Right?
mean, we've demasculized men so much that I think anything to boost the testosterone hit, you know?
Hmm. So back to that play he wrote, Olanum, is actually in heavy metal, it's like equals the Antichrist. So this is taken into popular culture and people who are counterculture and, like,
Mm.
edgy devil worship stuff.
Yeah.
So in heavy metal, Elon is the Antichrist. The play is about the HOMO schmexual grooming of a young boy by an older man.
Hmm. That's been happening a long time.
Yeah. Karl Marx's poor dad wondered if he was governed by a demon. He was
Ooh.
born in Trier, Germany, where the holy relic of the seamless robe of Christ is held. So it's Trier, Germany is a very special city for Christendom because it has so
Mm.
many churches and relics there. And this is where Karl Marx is from.
Wow.
He was a Jewish and Christian. He moved to Berlin, and that's where everything fell apart, where he started to go to university. And that happens to a lot of people because, as we're going to see at the very end, the Frankfurt School was all about subverting universities with communists to teach this to budding young intellectuals.
Mm-hmm.
So he would always take his allowance and blow it all from his dad at college, and then just like always be asking for more. And his stupid Christian parents were good enough to take all their money, even though he was too self-important to earn a living. And he used Engels, his friend, as a type of sugar daddy too. And
Okay.
it's funny because, like, the older you get, the more you're like, dude, I know somebody like this. Like, I know people that take from their parents or whoever and like turn around and curse them and like say, oh, they're so stupid, but they're good enough to finance your entire being,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So he was a super hypocrite. Because abolition of inheritance, number 3 of the communist ideology, and he was always waiting around for his inheritance and trying to get money out of family and friends, because he
Mm-hmm.
was so important that he had to get his word out, his message, that he couldn't like work like a regular person.
Right.
And this is a lot of communism ideology has to do with envy, I figured out, because he was just envious of people with money, but he didn't want to do anything to make money.
Sounds like a lot of people today.
Yeah. Engels' girlfriend died, and Marx asked him for more money. So his best friend's lady died.
Okay.
And he tells him, and Karl Marx like, oh, that sucks. By the way, I need some more money. In the same breath, and it made Engels so mad. He was like, you can read their letters back and forth.
Okay.
So he's a typical lazy socialist. academic peddling inane ideas. He had gross bachelor frog hygiene.
Gross.
He had stinky warts and boils. This is all in the book, dude. He was gross. Like,
I'm gonna get this book.
okay. His house was always topsy-turvy and squalor, infested with bugs. He had boils from head to toe and also on his hot dog parts. Right? He took opium for his boils, which is ironic because he said religion is the opium of the people. He wrote Das Kapital so the bourgeoisie would remember his carbuncles, or his boils. So he was in such turmoil that he had to bring this to the rest of the world. And this is what everybody's falling for right now.
Yeah.
He sent his wife to relatives to beg for money. He moved around between Brussels, Paris, Cologne, and London. His whole family lived ghetto and broke. He had like 4 or 5 kids with this girl. His wife actually was nobility, and I feel really bad for her because she just fell for this guy who had all this like intellectual zeal, and she didn't realize he's an idiot.
Yeah.
A baby died, and an 8-year-old died from tuberculosis from living in unclean conditions. His poor wife's name was Jenny, and she wanted to die every day. He cheated with the nanny. A young girl sent to help out from Jenny's family. He got caught up with the communist couch surfers at their house in London. So I can just see it right now. Like this young family and this kids are neglected, starving, freezing, broke, poor wife. And he's having all of his buddies like hangers on, staying in the living room all around, doing God knows what to the kids. I know people like this that just live grossly.
No order.
No. And think that they're doing something important for humanity. So he treated the nanny like a slave. A baby ensued. And he passed the baby off to Ingalls and had Ingalls take credit for that baby. And then they sent the baby to live in foster care. Her name was Lynchen. So this is like a Jerry Springer episode. I mean, you could have Karl Marx up there like, you know, in Ingalls and have paternity tests and people will be hooting and hollering about like who the baby daddy is, right?
Yeah.
He was racist toward his Cuban son-in-law and to JEWS. He didn't want his family. In 1881, his wife died and had a weird atheist funeral, which Karl was too sick to attend. And Ingalls gave the eulogy. So they wanted to replace all of our rites of passage and religious ceremonies with just straight communism. And his daughter, Eleanor, married a scoundrel and a cad who was just like her father. He talked her into unaliving herself and then backed out.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. And then he had another daughter, Laura and Paul, who did an unaliving pact together by injecting potassium cyanide.
Oh, no.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So Marx's poetry had included those ideas. So his plays and all of his sonnets and poems were super satanic and dark and gross, and it had these themes in them, and it drove his family to do that. Let's see, we're almost done. Ingalls wrote a book about how the state should take over childcare to free up the mother to sleep with whoever she wants. So Ingalls was another character. Like Marx envied Ingalls for not having any kids and not being married because he wanted the freedom to run around and do whatever he want. And Ingalls' contribution was some kind of feminist idea that mothers should have more help by raising kids as a collective so mom can be free to sleep around.
Okay. No husband? Okay.
No, in communism, everything's shared. Wives are shared, women are shared, children are shared, labor is shared. It's all everybody's thing. So again, his ideological preferences were just an extension of his personal preferences, where he just wanted to
Do what he wanted. Yeah.
Yeah. He called children consequences that could be unburdened by communism. So that's all children are. And then a lot of communists converts say they have seen the light. So we talked about that in our light show, remember? Masons and lots of other people talk about seeing the light. Communism does that too. But the light is just that there is no God and we need to have the state take over everything. Let's see. Lenin and Trotsky were in the League of the Militant Godless, an anti-religious propaganda group. They wrote about creating a new man, and this is like where transhumanism kicks in, a higher social biological type, a superman whose even bodily function will be subject to his will. So they thought that you could create such a man that he could make his heart beat or stop, or he could make his blood flow, or he could like do all of these bodily functions that are automatic.
Okay.
They're cuckoo.
Yeah.
During the Bolshevik Revolution, Lenin in 1918, all assets of the Russian Orthodox Church were confiscated by the state, and Marxism-Leninism became the new state religion. Weddings, baptisms, and funerals were all converted into bizarre communist ceremonies. At this time, Russia had 657 churches in 1917 and then went down to less than 150 in 1976. So they just like went across the whole countryside eradicating all Orthodox church. So like I said, communism first and foremost about eliminating religion. Wurmbrand. So this book actually talks about this book. And he described the prison that he was in of Petesti, he said, which held unspeakable tortures of Christians. Yeah, you don't want to know. Like, if you get this book, you'll read it, but I'm not going to repeat. I mean, it's just the worst thing you could ever think of, what they did to prisoners in there. Like, take your worst fear and multiply that by infinity, and that's what he's doing. Let's see. Oh, and you can look up the genocide of the souls, the Petesti experiment, if you want to know about that.
Okay.
So he talks about black masses and blasphemy and torture and all that gross stuff. The Bolsheviks were the first socialist Democrats. NAZIS were socialists. Remember that?
Yeah.
That stands for National whatever.
I don't know what it stands for.
Yeah. Communists and socialists are rooted in envy. I said that. Every group that takes up socialism argues that they will get it right this time. It just requires the public to relinquish more rights and autonomy. So they say it only didn't work because people were against it. That's the only reason that, but it's going to work this time if we have AI.
Right. Yeah. Whole different approach.
Yeah. Communists find liberal progressive pastors to be the biggest suckers of them all. So the end of this book, well, actually a good like third of this book is dedicated to exposing the communist infiltration of mainly the Catholic Church, but also the Protestant Church.
Okay.
They call them dupes, useful idiots. They have lists of groups like professors, teachers, unions, journalists, Christians, who are just, they call them useful idiots. Right? Wow. And Crowley's worldview was the same. He said, there's a sucker born every minute.
Okay.
And one of those circus guys said that too. I don't know who's quoting who. Do you know what I'm talking about? Who's the main circus guy? Ringling? No. Barnum, P.T. Barnum. Do you know who that? Barnum and Bailey's circus. So he would say that too. Let's see. Catholic Church in America, religious beliefs atrophy in the party. So they had this thing called the outstretched hand policy where they would try to like link up with Catholic Church in the name of like equality and unity, and they call this the outstretched hand policy. But they were just really subverting to get people to come over to communism, and then hoping that their faith in God would atrophy after they became communists.
Okay.
So there's no such thing as a Christian communist. It's anathema to each other. Stalin was called the leader of the anti-God army, and true party members were called a godless.
Okay. So we've established like they don't want God.
No.
Okay. No
Can I drive
churches,
this
no
point home
religion.
anymore? That Karl Marx did not care about people getting what they needed. He only cared about killing God.
Yeah.
Entire chapters of this book are dedicated to the testimonies of communists during the Un-American Activities trials in the 50s. Have you ever heard of that?
Mm-mm.
So there was like all of these communists infiltrating Hollywood, and they were trying to corral them and arrest them. And you can go through their testimonies, and they're all like, yeah, we're just trying to kill God. That's all we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah. They openly state they used Trojan horse tactics to infiltrate and destroy churches. Communist cells went into seminaries and educational institutions to slant the ideology and spearhead the movement. He said, we will take America under the name of socialism, liberalism, progressivism, and democracy.
Sounds like now.
Does that sound like today?
It does, yes.
Let's see. We're almost done. The Russian Orthodox Church of the Soviet Union was allowed to continue and used as a weapon to challenge the authority of the Roman Catholic Church. The time and energy needed to understand the idiotic ideas of these people is not worth the investment, this guy says in the book, and I agree. There's this thing called the CPUSA, which is like the Communist Party in America.
Mm-hmm.
Is a hotbed of sickos. David Thorstad, who founded NAMBLA. Do you know what that is?
I do.
Yeah. He was a communist Trotskyist. Aleister Crowley had a boyfriend named Walter Duranty, who was a journalist who worked with Moscow to give false reports about starvation conditions in Russia. So they were starving, and they sent this New York Times reporter over to see what was going on. And he's like, oh, it's not that bad. But it really was that bad. So he was like lying for them. They called him his the man in Moscow, and he was a Pulitzer Prize winner, liar. Founder of the modern GAY movement, Harry Hay combined Marxism, Native American spirituality, and New Age spirituality, and made GAYS a minority class. So this is what they do. They like take a group of people who are victimized or oppressed or whatever, and they like promote communism to them. Mm-hmm. Harry Hay was also an organist for the Los Angeles OTO. He was introduced to communism by actor Will Greer, who played Grandpa on the Waltons TV show. Isn't that crazy?
That is, yeah.
And so this brings us to our last little topic about the Frankfurt School. Have you heard of that thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So 1923, they called it the Goethe University at first, and Goethe is who wrote that story about Faust.
Okay.
And so this developed a Freudo-Marxism ideology with the goal of remaking society through the eradication of traditional norms and institutions, and the focus was on culture and sex.
Okay.
So the boomers of the 60s were the guinea pigs of this. This created the flower child, hippies, Woodstock, Haight-Ashbury, LSD, and sexual liberation. So neo-Marxism, the atheist academics like Wilhelm Reich. Do you know who that guy is?
Mm-hmm.
Patron saint of Coomers. He wrote a book called The Sexual Revolution, talking about the sexual needs of infants. And he had schmecks with barn animals.
Classy.
And he called the church a schmexual political organization of the patriarchy. And so that's another word that you're going to hear a lot, right?
Patriarchy.
Yeah. That's something that has to come down so that communism can flourish.
Yeah.
One last thing, there's a connection between Satanism and critical theory, which they teach a lot in college through the Frankfurt schools. Walter Benjamin was supposed to liberate the West from the religions that enslaved them. And this is where the word cultural Marxism comes from. There's a guy who wrote a book, Jason A. Josephson Storm, his book 2017 called Myth of Disenchantment. And he says, I locate the origins of much of critical theory in the occult milieu of France and Germany. So he's talking about all of these guys who created this ideology were also involved in the occult.
Mm-hmm.
He has a chapter called Dialectic of Darkness, the Magical Foundations of Critical Theory. He says there's an uncanny resemblance between critical theory and the heart of magical philosophy. It would appear that critical theory's proximate other was the occult. And our last freak of tonight is Marxist feminist Kate Millett. Have you heard of that lady? She might be in Rachel's book about feminism. If not, then she should know about her, but we're going to have her on in the future. So Kate Millett wrote a book called Schmexual Politics, which is the Bible of women's liberation. She is called the High Priestess and the Mao Zedong of the women's movement. And her cultural revolution was all about destroying the American family. These are her words.
Mm-hmm.
Destroying the American family by promoting promiscuity, eroticism, prostitution, and homosexuality. Kate's sister claims she was literally possessed and she had crazy spells and talked to little green men. And she was friends with Yoko Ono.
Nice. Okay.
So, cultural Marxism, and this is being taught, divides the world into groups of oppressors and oppressed. So there's always some kind of enemy, right? Mm-hmm. The victim group serves as a society's redeemer group. They must always search for the newest victim class because communism was meant to be a perpetual revolution. It wasn't. It didn't have like a point to it. Mm-hmm. In Marx's day, it was factory workers. Today, it could be women, blacks, or gays. So
minorities. Yeah.
So that is all I had about communism, which you're going to be hearing a lot more about it. But now we know that Marx was gross.
Yeah, he's gross with boils. Yeah.
Yes. Crusty old man.
Well, thank you for doing all that research and explaining all that.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know because at face value, you're like, yeah, I think everybody should be equal and we should have, the state step in and not let anybody starve. Mm-hmm. But that's not even a part of it. It's basically killing God.
Yeah.
So,
well, okay.
I hope you all enjoyed that book report, and I will not be joining the party. I've already chosen a side, and that is not it.
Yeah, me either.
And next week, we're going to talk about transhumanism, Elon Musk, Amber Heard, and all kinds of other weird stuff. We've got great shows coming for you about dating and about satanic witches. And are you enjoying that book?
Yep.
Enjoying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wild.
Oh, and then one I wanted to ask if you want to do this. Do you want to do a show about dinosaurs? That would be really fun.
Yeah.
Dinosaurs, real or sus? I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
who knows?
Thank you, everybody, and have a good night.